Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. We've got something a bit different today. We are taking a look at Fanteam, and joining us is the champion of the Fanteam Premier League 2020-21 season. It's Josh Wooldridge. He's a good friend of mine. How are you, my friend?
Hey Az, how's it going?
It's very good, very good. You must be buzzing.
To say the least, yeah. I think it's all just very surreal, isn't it? So
It sure is. So, I mean, I know there's this kind of a little bit of cross wires between people who play like the Premier League and play Fanteam. There's all these new games kind of coming up. For anyone watching this for the first time who maybe doesn't know what Fanteam is, do you want to just explain briefly about what Fanteam is and why it's different to the Premier League?
yeah, of course. So a fan team is it actually goes really quite nicely hand in hand with FPL, to be honest. So the games are very similar. There's possibly like three to four different like nuances to the rules, but you can definitely play both at the same time. They're both essentially just trying to pick players to get the most points, basically. So
Yep.
the scoring's very, very similar. The only difference between Fan Team is it's on a betting site, so you buy in for 20 or 25 euros,
Yep.
depending on which one we're talking about, and there's a million euros in the prize pool. So it's they definitely advertise themselves as a gambling website, whereas FPL is obviously a free to enter site. So
Yeah, and with that,
um,
like you say, comes much bigger prizes, because I think one of the things people kind of talk about with FPL is, top prize or what VIP tickets to a match, you get an iPad, all the kind of very, very kind of small prize. It's much more about the reputation and the status and finishing in the top 10,000 and all that, whereas Fan Team is much more about winning cash and winning prizes. And I mean, I can't believe, I mean, I've just to give a bit of context, right? Before I started doing like stuff with scouts, so before I started doing the scout cast and things, the first kind of interactions I had with people on the site were I ran a cash league when it was legal to do and wasn't in terms and conditions not to do it. And I ran two cash leagues. One was a £5 entry, one was a £20. The £5 one, I had a WhatsApp chat. No one talked at all. It died off after a couple of years. The £20 chat is still going now. It's a really great group of guys in there. We meet up, well, before COVID, we meet up once a year. We go to Belushi's in London. We watch football. It's fantastic. And you've been a key part of that right from the start. Was it right from the start you were there?
I think I might have joined a year
A
in
year
actually,
in.
but
A
it's
year
been
in.
it's still we've been going for quite a while. We've been friends for quite a
I
while now.
know,
As I
it's
think.
crazy. And yeah, I mean, I really want to talk to you about what you were feeling on the final day, because I mean, obviously we were in the chat. We knew you were fourth going into it the final day, right? That's what I remember. And so everyone was thinking, oh my god, Josh is going to win some money. It's going to be really exciting. And then just talk me through the final day and what happened and just how it all unfolded.
Oh, it was really good. So obviously Doyle, he's in our chat as well.
Hmm.
He's one of our good friends. I went to his house at about 12. I think the deadline was at half two, I think. So I was just trying to think about, almost try to take my mind off like fantasy almost, because I got in my head, I knew what my transfers were going to be on the last day. We were just like waiting to adjust to maybe some late news or a team leak or something.
Mm.
So we literally ordered some food. We played a bit of poker, actually. We played a bit of heads up poker against each other just to like calm the nerves a little bit. And then I locked in my transfers I was going to do. So I bought in Bamford and I bought in a reserve goalkeeper for Melier to make the room for the three leads, so I could get Bamford in, basically.
And,
I really
I
liked the
know who
West
that
Brom
keeper
fixture.
was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I did those moves, and then at 3 o'clock we found out Bamford was benched, obviously, and I was like, oh no, it's all going to go wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, right from the start, it was just all the other team news was fine, so I can't really complain. But it was just that one transfer I'd bought in seemingly had gone horribly wrong. I mean, I thought he
And
might get
probably the most
30 minutes.
sensible
Yeah.
one, home to West Brom. Looked as I was, because I was the opposite. I was really happy when I saw he was benched, and then really unhappy when he scored. And you had the complete reverse,
Yeah,
complete reverse
exactly.
feeling.
Yeah, and then so for the first 30 minutes of the games on the final day, it seemed like nothing happened genuinely.
Mm.
So I was expecting early doors, maybe 4 or 5 different things, some good, some bad, to have happened by half an hour. We were looking at the screen, nothing had happened up to that point. There was no significant goal really. I think Sheffield United had scored against Burnley or something like that, and there was maybe Leicester had scored against Spurs, I think, but no one in the top 20 really had that many.
Mm.
Like no one had Vardy, for example. So that goal was a bit of a dud goal as well. And then in the like the 10 minutes before halftime, everything happened. It was like we were watching Gillette Soccer Special, and there was like an update every minute that like
Yeah.
was significant. So there was the Mane goal, which was amazing, and then Edison saved a penalty 30 seconds later. It was absolutely
Who was your
bizarre.
goalkeeper, right? You had Edison in that. I mean, that is amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, because I remember a few weeks ago he was benched, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was benched, and I managed to get Melié's points off the bench, which was a 9-pointer on Fanteam.
Look
So
at
I got
that. Look
so
at that.
Man City conceded 3 in a 4-3 win, and Melié, I think, but they beat Burnley 4-0. I think so. I got those 9 points, and then I also got the ridiculous haul on the last day as well. I couldn't have got any luckier with the goalkeepers, really, especially.
I mean, it's incredible. And then, I mean, the scenes when we were getting videos, you you all went out. You had a whiteboard, didn't you, going into it with your transfer plans and strategies?
Yeah, so in pre-season, me and Doyle, we met up in the pub. It was obviously when the restrictions were a bit relaxed in Augusty time. So we met in the pub and we were doing our FPL and Fanteam planning for the season. And we bought these 2 whiteboards basically. And
Love that.
Doyle just pulled them out on the last day of the season. He was like, "Well, these are going to come in useful." So we just wrote down my 11 on the whiteboard basically, and we had a little section for like who we didn't want to do so well as well, and yeah, the whiteboard's still intact. It's still got all the writing on it. So that's something I'll try and keep.
That's got to go on the
as
wall
long as possible.
Yeah, if the missus
along with maybe an Edison jersey.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, he definitely deserves some credit. Yeah, because I mean, I went into the final day with a little bit of paper and I was crossing off players when they were scoring that I didn't want to. I really didn't want Mane to do anything. Mane going berserk cost me my status in the Elite 64 and all that, but I mean, it's not about me. I couldn't care less, to be honest, when I saw all the happiness that you were getting from the group. So let's talk a little bit about strategy with Fanteam. So to me, the key difference with Fanteam is the kind of active encouragement of multiple teams. So you can have as many teams as you want, essentially, in Fanteam. Obviously, in the Premier League game, it's completely different. Anyone who's got more than one team is like shunned from the community. You know, you're going to get reported, you're going to get all your accounts deleted, all of that. Fanteam's the opposite because obviously they want more money, so they want to get you. How many teams did you have in the Premier League season? Do you think there is a huge advantage to having lots of teams? I'm guessing there probably is. And what is the strategy if you do have multiple teams? How do you make that work?
So what I actually did was, I knew I was going to put multiple teams in for the reasons you said. It's encouraged. It's like it gives you more tickets to the lottery, I suppose.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That was always my thing pre-season. Fanteam also ran some really good promotions in pre-season. So there was a lot of like, if you enter one team, you get another one for free sort of thing. So I think I paid for about 8 teams, but I actually had 12 entries because of like some free entries. So that was great, obviously. And ironically, I think my team that won, I think that was like my 11th or 12th entry that I put in. I think it was like the last one or the last but one. It might have even been one of the free ones, which is obviously amazing promotion. But yeah, so I entered 12 completely different teams. I picked from the same sort of player pool, so maybe like from the same 40-ish players. You know what I mean? I picked 15 per team, obviously.
So that's what I was going to ask. That's what I was going to ask because I mean, sorry to interrupt, just because I've got a couple of like Fanteam teams for the Euro game. We can talk about that in a bit more detail in a bit. But I'm finding it hard to like, because there's certain players that I want. Like I really want Depay. I really want like Malinovsky. I think it's going to do well. Like there's certain players, but I'm like I should really be differentiating my team. But I don't know how much to do it. Like, do I just have 2 completely different squads, or is it better to have a kind of a core couple and then just have a few sprinklings of differentials around the side? I guess when you've got more teams, you can do more things, but I find it hard to get my head around it when I've got lots of teams like that.
I think on the season-long game, I think I actually had an identical bench, let's say, on both teams because there was just you could see what was the clear value. I mean, Souček was 4.5, for example. It seemed like a real underpricing, considering obviously on Fanteam you get rewarded for 90-minute bonus as well, which Souček has nailed every single game.
Yeah.
And then they also priced like Darlow and Melié both at 4 million goalkeepers. So I had 2 playing goalkeepers for 8 million total, basically for like the whole first half of the season.
So they were in all of your teams.
Yeah, I had Melié, Darlow, and Souček definitely in every team, and I think that there might have been the odd other one as well. But Ben White was really well priced; he was 4 million as well. So I had Ben White in most of my teams as well, especially at the start. And then the rest, like you say, I was just differentiating. I just picked a lot of players who I thought were nailed to play 90 minutes. So the likes of Zaha, Grealish, James Ward-Prowse, like these cheap mid-price midfielders. I had a lot of those, and then just the normal FPL guys, really. So Salah, Son, Kane, Bruno. You know, I didn't do anything too special.
Did
really,
you have
know what I mean?
did you have a strategy for those teams? Like, for example, did you see, okay, I've got Grealish in 3 teams. I'm not going to have him in another team because I've got him in 3, so I'll have Zaha in 2 teams. Did you kind of work out which players you had in which teams, so you kind of worked out the overlap between them, or did you just kind of wing it?
Definitely, yeah. So I mean, to be completely honest, I was definitely more focused on FPL when the first ball was kicked in game week 1. So I'd put all these teams in. I really wanted to do well, obviously, but I was definitely conscious to not have like all 12 teams with some of the mid-price midfielders, for example, because they tend to be quite unpredictable when they're like the mid-price players, obviously. Whereas with Bruno and Salah and Kane, I was probably a bit less concerned about having them say in like 10 out of 12, you know what I mean, or whatever. So it was probably in the mid-price mids and all the different defenders that I was like rotating my teams a little bit.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting. Because I've got the Fanteam like final table here. So there you are at the top. It's still bizarre. Must be even more bizarre for you. There was a guy called Nobody. I don't know if you know. Oh, well, you definitely know him. So he had
the infamous Nobody.
The infamous Nobody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the top 20. And then you've got Tellaire. He was there. He had 3. No, he had more than that. 3. He had 5. So John Paul. I think he's got a couple there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I mean you're the only Czech Josh in the top 20. So how did the rest of your teams do? Was it just that one that kind of excelled?
I think I had another one that was inside the top 100. I think it was quite low. To be honest, I lost the final day. I just lost track of that, to be honest. Like, it was just that one that I was focusing on at the end, obviously. But that Nobody and Teller, interestingly, they went for the identical team in all of their teams, even for like the whole season, pretty much on a lot of their teams. So that Nobody had 250 teams, I believe. That's how many he put in.
Wow.
Teller didn't have as many. He had about 20 to 40, I think. But so Teller's was really impressive to get. He got most of his in the top 100, I think. So he had like a great season. But yeah, so they went for the complete opposite strategy to me. Like I picked 12 different squads from game week 1. I think they didn't even differentiate in week 37 in some of their teams. So it was proves 2 different strategies can do really well for 2 different people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
So if you enter 100 teams, it's what, $2,000. And then you kind of need to finish in the top. Well, you need to finish in the top 20, right? At least one of them, just to kind of get your money back.
Yeah, it's like a poker tournament. Like, obviously I play a bit of poker, as you know. It's like a poker tournament. All the money, it's so top heavy. Like, a lot of the money is in the top sort of 20, 30 places. You know what I mean? If you come, like, I think the top 6,000 got paid, I think. So if you came 6,000th, I think you made €5 profit or whatever it was. I think it was you cashed for 30. So you can cash in all your teams if you persevere all the way to the end. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the teams below 6,000th were like quite dead teams, I think. So yeah, it was definitely playing the long game and sticking at it. I think you can. It's very profitable, but you have to get more luck to be more profitable.
Absolutely.
So.
I mean, the interesting thing for me is when you've got multiple teams like that, I'm guessing it kind of like funnels down. So you've got 20 teams, for example, all of different combinations of players. In the first like 6 or 7 weeks, you're going to see, well, some of these teams have tanked and they're doing absolutely terribly. Some of them are actually riding quite high. So I guess, is it the motivation to just kind of stick with the teams that are, do you kind of like funnel it down? So, okay, I've got 10 teams that have got a chance here. 10 are dead to me. None of those players have done well. So now I'll just focus on those 10 teams. And do you find that your strategy kind of aligns with those 10 teams? So do you see, okay, Salah is doing well, so I'm going to bring him in on 8 of these teams. 2 of them are bank against him. Salah scores a hat-trick in the next game. Okay, well, I'll get rid of those 2 teams now. They're not doing well. Does it kind of work like that? That's how I see it, but I don't know, obviously, because I haven't really taken it too seriously.
So I had my 12 teams, and definitely for the first half of the season, I was just trying to do the best transfer on every single one. There was like, I was picking a lot of the same players, like in terms of like who I'm going to bring in that week. So I might have brought in like 10 Salahs, for example, if I thought Salah had West Brom at home or something. You know what I mean? If there was a great fixture. But towards the end, I think 4 of my teams like pulled away from the other 8. So like the 8 teams, I guess I was almost just doing the most simple transfer possible on those. I was still playing them all till the end. I did my transfers every single week. I didn't tank them or whatever. But I was just trying to get those transfers out the way as quickly as. But I might have done them the night before, for example. Whereas with my top team, obviously, I was waiting until 5 minutes before the deadline every week to do my transfer. You know what I mean?
Lineups and
maximum
all that.
information, possible.
Yeah.
So it was. I definitely prioritised the top 4 especially, and then the bottom 8. I was just trying to do like. If Bamford was really popular that week, I'd probably bring in Bamford, you know what I mean? Just to get those moves out the way while still not trying to completely tank them, you know what I mean? So,
how did you get on in FPL this year? Where did you finish?
In FPL, I think I came 320k in the end. So it's my worst FPL season for like 4 or 5 years, I think, ironically. So
do you think that's because you had some attention lost on the Fanteam stuff?
On FPL, I was definitely trying. I would say I was still trying till the end, definitely, but I was trying to do some fun things. I think I capped Bale like 5 times in the last 8 weeks or something. I caught the one haul, but in some of the other weeks it didn't quite go so well. And I captained Stuart Dallas about 5 times and didn't catch a haul off him either. So I was trying to do different things to try and like I was quite far back from top 100k and I wanted to get 100k, so I tried to do some different things and I just ended up falling down. So,
what's your record like in FPL in general?
So the 2 seasons before this, I've came 4k and 12k for the 2 seasons before this. But
do you think that knowledge of FPL helps with Fanteam?
It definitely does. Yeah, the 2 games are so similar. I think there's, like I said, about 3 nuanced rules that are different across the 2 games, maybe 4 or 5 actually, but. They definitely complement each other, and if you do your research for FPL, for example, I think a lot of it will be relatable to Fanteam as well. So I think like the fixtures are the same, you know what I mean, for example. So whereas Sky is obviously a lot different. So I think Fanteam and FPL complement each other a lot more than Sky and FPL do, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing I've noticed with Fanteam, particularly the Euro game, and what you mentioned about those goalkeepers, for example, is some of the pricing is just it's bizarre. I find. I mean, look at the Euro game. Look at like Yilmaz at 4.5, Bale at 6. There's just a couple of players, and you look at it and you think, what? What's going on here? So, do you find it easier to build a team on Fanteam compared to FPL, or are there other things which go the other way, where some players are maybe a bit overpriced?
Yeah, and also on the Euros game, by the way, they've given us a very generous extra 5 million budget compared to the 100, which is like you really do notice that extra 5 million. It means you get an extra premium basically instead of a fodder. You know what I mean? Yep. It does really make a difference. I think on Fanteam there was some very noticeable underprices last year, which I tried to put in every team, as I mentioned before. I looked at Souček, for example. I can't believe he was 4.5 million. I was absolutely like, look, lock him in for 12 teams. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And then the goalkeepers, there's way more 4 million goalkeepers, even on the Euros game, that are like regular starters for their team compared to FPL. You always struggle to find a 4 million starting goalkeeper. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when you do, it's often the reserve. Newcastle goalkeeper, and they've ravaged by injuries, and he's got a horrible run, but you get him in just because you want him, just because you want to save that extra money. So in terms of strategy for Fanteam, what kind of advice would you give for people? We'll bring it back to the Euros now, because obviously the Euros game is kicking off pretty soon. There's quite a lot of interest and hype being generated about it. I mean, you hear from people like you who have actually won the money and been paid the money as well, which is a key thing, and sitting in your account, so it's not a scam or anything like that. So I'm playing it for the first time. For example, as I said, I made a team last year, never checked it. I think I sold Grealish just before he got all those goals against Liverpool, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not playing this anymore. But I'm gonna play it next year. So what advice would you give to me playing the Euro game for the first time? Say people are going to set up 2 or 3 teams, for example. What would you kind of recommend?
So looking at the Euros game specifically, I think all the big strikers look absolutely amazing on the Euros game. To be honest, it's just so fun to have the likes of Ronaldo, Mbappe, Lukaku, and Kane all in the same team. You know what I mean? So I think I always play 3 at the back on Fanteam, because I think the defenders are less valuable than on FPL.
Yep.
And the main reason for that is the lack of bonus points on Fanteam. So the bonus points really boost up defenders' overall numbers on FPL, because when they keep a clean sheet and get an attack in return, they also get 3 bonus on top of that.
Yep.
Whereas on Fanteam, they don't get the extra 3 bonus. So every time they haul huge, they get 3 less basically on Fanteam. So that's like a really key difference.
That is big. Yeah, absolutely.
It's absolutely huge. So I always play 3 at the back on Fanteam, and I do tend to go for the attacking defenders, because it's nice to have the two avenues to the points, like either the defensive returns or the attacking returns. Midfielders are great on Fanteam because if they get 90 minutes, the way the season-long game was last year, it's changed slightly for the Euros and for next season's game. But if Bruno Fernandes played for Man United and they won 1-0 and he played 90 minutes, he'd get 5 points for that. Whereas that same return would only be 3 on FPL. Wow. So the midfielders are like almost get extra points and the defenders almost get less rewarded, if that makes sense. So midfielders are really good on Fanteam, even with the slight impact adjustment going down a little bit. I believe it's like plus 0.3 now rather than plus 1.
That's really good advice, because a lot of people are going quite hard on defenders, paying a lot of money for Italy defenders and Belgian defenders and all these kind of guys. Or like me, my teams are massively skewed towards the forwards. So what you're saying, so we haven't really talked about forwards yet. What do you think about forwards then, particularly in the Euros game, because there's so many big hitters? And the classification seems a bit more skewed towards those players being forwards as well.
Yeah, I mean, Ronaldo at 10 million, I don't think we'll ever see that again on any other game. So I'm very much going to be into that one, I think. But so in general, I prefer midfielders on Fanteam to strikers.
Sorry, before, could you move your mic a little bit away from your...
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. Just a little bit.
Hit
me. Forwards.
Yeah, so... normally, I prefer midfielders in general on Fanteam, but on the Euros game, I just think that I just much prefer the strikers, like in terms of the personnel who are there. So I think as long as you're playing 7 attackers in terms of midfielders plus strikers, I don't think you can go too wrong, really, especially with the wealth of strikers on offer, especially. So I think I'm going to lean more towards 3-4-3 for the Euros game, to be honest, with, as you said, cheap defenders. I think is the way I'll go mainly.
Which defenders are you looking at?
I really like David Alaba from Austria. I saw him against England the other night. He's playing left wing, basically.
Yeah.
He's 5 million, so he's a lovely price. They've got 2 decent fixtures out of 3 as well, I think. So I'm going to start him twice and might consider benching him for their
and the likes of Alioski, maybe. I mean, I know it's North Macedonia, but on penalties, potentially, assist points.
He's on penalties, yeah. I think that's the main pull. I think Rodriguez from Switzerland might be the same, actually, on penalties. So you can always have your eye on a defender who takes penalties, I think, on any game, to be honest, can't you? Because they've got that avenue to points. But I don't think Alioski's top of my list, but I think he'll be in some of my squads. I'm probably going to enter multiple teams again. So
Alioski's feels so
really
dirty
nice.
You saying that, but I know it's the dumb thing. But I hear you say you're entering multiple teams. I'm like, no, you can't enter multiple teams. That's cheating.
Just something to get used to, isn't it? Like a complete difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, that's it. So that's interesting. So so you are probably going to be going with the 3 premium striker spots. I mean, that's the kind of logic I came to, is that there's. I mean, it's, in the Premier League, you look at some fixtures and you think, okay, there's 2 or 3 maybe standout fixtures, but then you look at the Euros, particularly in the group stages, and you've got the likes of Lewandowski, Ronaldo, Kane against Croatia, Lukaku against Russia, and there's just so many picks. I can't imagine. I mean, this is the thing that kind of puts me off Yilmaz a little bit, because I know he's 4.5. I know he's like completely ridiculously underpriced, but it means that I couldn't get the 3 heavy hitting forward. So is it clever pricing from Fanteam, or do you reckon they just messed up a bit?
I think so. Someone in our chat actually yesterday posted something really interesting. Turkey are actually the lowest ranked team in their group, ironically, in the UEFA official rankings. So I think that's part of the reason why they've actually been priced so low across the board.
Okay.
I also think that Yilmaz is too cheap. So any team where I play 2 up front, for example, Yilmaz will be my...
Yeah.
It feels weird to call him a fodder. I think he scored about 15 goals last season, but he'll be my 8th attacker definitely in any team where I play 2 up front starting. But I think it's worked out as very clever pricing, actually, because it gives you a decision now.
Absolutely.
And that's what the game's all about. Like having to decide between a 4.5 Yilmaz or a 9 million Lewandowski, for example. You know what I mean? It's very interesting.
Yeah. He's not a Ryan Brewster, is he?
he's a bit better than Ryan Brewster.
So what other players? You mentioned if Ronaldo you mentioned, right? He's a kind of lock in your team. Obviously that first game against Hungary. What other players do you think? What other players are you seeing appear in most of your teams if you've got multiple teams, or even all? Is there any players that you've got in all of your teams?
There's none I've got in all of my teams. I've done it on a spreadsheet basically. I think it's similar to what you used to do for FPL last year. I've just written down all my teams and like who I have in each one, and like then there's a running total at the end, like who is in X amount. You know what I mean? So I think my two most popular ones are Kane and Lukaku still, because I'm pretty sure they're going to get 90 minutes. They're like talismanic figures for both their countries. I think they'll both be in the goals. I'd be surprised if one of those doesn't win the Golden Boot if England and Belgium go far, to be honest, in the competition. Which we're not sure about England, obviously, but we can always hope, right? I mean,
well, if we win the group, which I think we will, we then play second in Group F, which will be either Portugal or France, I imagine. So
there's no easy way to the final for us, unfortunately. Group F, the fact that we've been pitted against Group F is very tough.
It is, yeah.
If we win the group, which I think we will win.
Yeah, so do I. But I mean, it's one of those ones where we'll need to play them eventually. So I think we're in for a bit of disappointment, but it's fine. It's England. We're used to it. I mean, like you said, with Lukaku and Kane, I mean, they're kind of locks. I'm wondering a little bit about Kane in that first game against Croatia, just because I think that's obviously our toughest game, and I think if we got through that 1-0, we'd be quite happy. I can't see Kane going crazy in that game, but against the Czech Republic and Scotland, it's a different matter. I think we need him for those games.
I think it's really important to not book in transfers though.
Right.
So I think just having Kane from the start, and you look at the 3 games as a whole, and you just be like, I'm happy to have Harry Kane.
Is it 1 free a week you get?
1 free a week up till the end of the group stages. So I'm going to try and roll my transfer in game week 2 in all my teams. So I have 2 for game week 3, I think, because game week 3, we're going to see lots of rotation, aren't we? I think when teams are already through playing, like giving some of their other 26 players a game, you know what I mean? So I think having 2 in game week 3 is going to be really valuable, actually. So I'm trying to lock my teams in as if I'd almost want to keep everybody for all 3 games, because there's then a forced wild card in the last 16.
Yeah.
You have to wild card then. So you're only looking at the first 3 games for all your teams, basically.
And that's across all your teams. So you wouldn't advise booking in a transfer for any team that you've got?
I'm not going to be booking a transfer for any of my teams.
Really
I know some of the guys in the as chat, as we'll call it, are talking about moving Ronaldo on after the first game, for example, because I think he's got Germany and France back to back after the Hungary game. So that could be very valid. I think that could be a really good move to do.
That's what I'm thinking of doing, or maybe keeping Ronaldo, doing that with Lewandowski, who's got Slovakia in that first game. It just means a bit of a weakened team, because I'd have to keep money in the bank if I wanted to move Lewandowski to Kane. I'd have to keep like 4 million in the bank to do that, which doesn't really feel ideal. But this is the thing with the multiple teams, though. You can kind of experiment a little bit. You can have a very settled team, players all you like. And the second one, I think my second team, I've got like 3 Italy defenders in it, and just hope that they keep a couple of clean sheets. Your third team, you could go for a couple of Turkey defenders. I do like that kind of element of being able to experiment a bit, and being able to work around. I can't imagine being able to manage 10 plus teams. I think my brain would just melt.
I think that's part of the reason why I want to almost roll the transfer in game week 2 in all of them. I think so. I just don't have to think about it.
That's a good point.
Just keep the same strategy. It does. When you're aligned, it definitely makes it less confusing for yourself. I mean, we're all only humans, right? So managing that many teams is probably challenging for anybody, to be honest, especially when I'm committed to the strategy of going sort of different in all of them, like a little bit of a difference in all of them. Like every team's unique. So I think for my own sanity, I'm just going to try and roll the transfer in game week 2 and hopefully just do 2 on all of them in game week 3, hopefully, or maybe take a hit. I don't know. So it's always nice to do a mini wild card, isn't it?
Absolutely,
on any fantasy game.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's nice that we get the option to wild card, after a couple of weeks as well. Although if you've got 10, 20, 50 teams, and you've got a wild card every single bloody team, that is a nightmare.
I was saying the two times you have to actually like really commit to put in the work in before game week 1 and before game week 4. Those are the 2 times where you have to basically draft 50 teams twice, or however many teams you're doing, for example. So I'm going to have to just put a day aside, I think, before game week 4 and just
get the whiteboard out,
slog through them all. Yeah, ask Doyle to give me the whiteboard. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just last question on kind of Euro strategy then. So we talked about the premium stuff, not booking transfers, midfielders, all this stuff is great advice. The defender stuff I think is really interesting. You know, not getting those extra points for a clean sheet and that kind of reducing their impact quite a lot. So a 1-0 win for a defender, for example, you'd expect them to get 8-9 points, but they're not going to get that. So what about kind of like? So okay, let's talk about midfielders then. Are there any players who you think could be absolute gold this year, like maybe underpriced a bit? Or I mean, Bale, for example, at 6 million. I think like someone like John McGinn's like 4.5 can serve as like a good bench option. Are there any teams basically which you think have got options in which maybe people aren't considering but have got some really good
I think
potential?
So that on a similar note to McGinn, I think Yaziki from Turkey, he plays in the same team as Yilmaz. I think he played for Lille when they won the league. He's a 4-5 midfielder. They've just underpriced Turkey across the board. I think for me anyway. I think that they're probably $1 million too cheap across the board maybe. So Yaziki's my favourite like fodder midfielder, I suppose you could call him, 4.5 to have as my 8th attacker. I love Gareth Bale's price. I think he's going to be in a lot of my teams. He's 6 million. I love Christian Eriksen's price, to be honest, 7 million. I think he's going to play 90 minutes. I think he takes all their set pieces. He's going to be a great value. I think if Denmark do okay, they've got a pretty decent team as well. So I think Eriksen's really good. I really like Memphis Depay. It feels like such a fun pick, doesn't he? He's at 8.5, I think he is, but he plays as a striker. Same as Serge Gnabry, actually, 9 million. I think he's sneakily underpriced, to be honest. He plays centre forward for Germany in some games. So I think that's a nice one.
My limited understanding of Fanteam has led me to the conclusion that Depay is perfect for it, just because they've added this new rule in now where you get points awarded for shots. On target, I think shots on target, which they didn't have when you won it. That's a new one, right? And the winning bonus has been reduced. I think it was it was a point, and now is it 0.3 now?
It's not. Yeah, it's 0.3 or 0.4. I think it's 0.3,
which is a strange kind of concept to get your head around. You can earn 0.3 of a point for winning, but
we're used to whole points on FPL, aren't we? There's not even half points, is there? So
that kind of thing.
0.3 is very strange. The shots on target, though, I think. Even looking ahead a little bit to the season-long game next year, the shots on target to me are just going to benefit the likes of Bruno, Kane, Son, Salah, the already likely candidates anyway.
The talismans.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I'm actually probably going to pick pretty similar teams for the season-long game next year. But you can imagine for the Euros, I mean, it's going to be Ronaldo, Lukaku, Kane. They're going to be shooting for fun, you'd think, wouldn't you? So I think the shots on target, you just take them as like almost a bonus on top of what you already think or know about FPL or Fanteam. You know what I mean? So.
Would you agree with my kind of theory that this is going to be won or lost in the group stages?
That's really interesting. I think you can probably definitely lose it in the group stages. I don't think anyone can win anything in the group stage. I think there'll be a pack of people or players who have got a shot after the group stages. And then there'll be the odd person who comes from behind the pack who just punts something absolutely wild in the knockout rounds, like someone who picks like Slovakia to win their last 16 game against France, for example, or something, and it somehow happens or something like that. Because I've seen quite a few examples of that on the season-long game. So that nobody guy on one of his teams, he just captained Gareth Bale in the week that he got a hat-trick against Sheffield United. And he came from 80th to like 4th or 5th.
Yeah, wow.
And that can happen on Fanteam as it can on FPL as well, obviously. But
because my kind of feeling is that we're going to see the most mad results in the first few weeks, and then obviously as the tournament starts getting down into the quarterfinals, semi-finals, that's when it's going to be like Portugal v Spain. I mean, unless we get a Brazil, humiliation to Germany type result again, I imagine games are going to start getting a lot tighter as we go. And also with that comes the fact that everyone's got basically the same teams, right? Because once you get to the semi-finals, you have to pick. A team of what is it? I think it's maximum of 8 or something, 8 and 3, or is that the final?
In the semis though, you almost have to. So I played the Champions League version on Fanteam, and the format's quite similar to the Euros. So you almost have to pick a corner. So you have to like call each semi-final and just go maximum in on that team, basically. Yeah, so say you've got a team of 15. I think you almost have to go. Especially if you're near the top and trying to win the whole thing, you have to go 7 France, 7 Spain, and 1 from another team,
Yeah.
and then just make your bed and try and lie in it. You know what I mean? So
Do you think maybe that's where defenders come into the reckoning a bit more? Because if you're back in France to beat Spain 1-0, for example, you want to get 4 or 5 defenders in and maybe switch up your formation a bit.
Yeah, on the Champions League game, I went for 6 Chelsea defenders, including captain. So I captain Mendy, and I went 5 at the back. So I think I was on like 7 defenders in total, or 6 defenders in total, including the captaincy. So yeah, you have to literally do. I think that's the exact strategy, to be honest, towards the end. But you need to be in a position where you've got a chance of winning from that point.
Yeah.
So you need to be quite solid up to that point, I'd say, and then you really go for it towards the later stages.
Well, I guess that's how you could catch up, right? Say it was Spain versus Spain versus England, and everyone was thinking that England are going to win that game comfortably, which we wouldn't. But you could build a team which had all Spain players, go for the underdogs, build a team full of underdogs. If they win that game 1-0, if they win it, then you overtake all the people that have plumped on the other team. So there's always that element of luck, but you can strategize a bit towards that stage.
And back to the thing that you find uncomfortable to talk about, but if you've got multiple entries, you can obviously cover a lot of different permutations as well.
Yeah.
If you've got, like nobody did last season, for example, if you've got 10, 20 teams all on the same points in the same position, you can differentiate them at that point. So if you're really not sure about France against Netherlands, you can have 60% of your teams with loads of France in, 40% with Netherlands. You know what I mean? If that's how you feel. So
yeah,
it's definitely does help to differentiate in that way later on.
Yeah, really cool. Right, Josh, my final question for you then, and I'm sure it's the question that everyone wants to know, is what are you going to do with your winnings, apart from take us all out to Belushi's and we'll get very drunk together?
Yeah, we've got Belushi's penciled in for October, haven't we? So that was the first thing on the agenda to make sure that was secured. It's been long overdue, hasn't it?
It really
so that's
has.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I live in London. I'm obviously from Birmingham, as you can maybe tell from my accent. So I'm going to have to. I'm going to put some of the money towards a large house deposit in London. You know how much it costs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's that gone then.
This neck of the woods. And,
if there's any left from Belushi, say.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I might have to put it in a separate pot beforehand, I think, to keep it separate. I think otherwise there's a danger it could be all gone on tequila shots or something.
So, obviously it's a lot of money, but it really is a life-changing amount of money if you can use that money to get put it that much money towards a house.
Yeah, and then I've obviously got my poker dreams. So next summer I'm going to go to Vegas and play the World Series of Poker, which has been one of my lifelong dreams. So I was going to say the house. I'm elated.
The house is great for you, but quite boring. But the going to Vegas and then entering a poker tournament is awesome. Josh, awesome to talk to you. Really, really happy that you won Fanteam. I mean, imagine if you win the Euros one as well, get an even bigger house.
I don't think that's going to happen somehow. I almost hope someone else in our chat wins, for example, instead. Imagine if we did the double or something like that. So.
Yeah, Belushi's would be even better.
Oh, I know.
Josh, thanks so much for talking to me.